Welcome to the Central Pennsylvania Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast, keeping you up to date with what is happening in the York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania real estate markets.
Welcome to the Central Pennsylvania Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast. My name is Chad Eisenhart. I go to local real estate meetups in York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and rebroadcast the meetup in their entirety. Whether you're a new investor looking to get started or own 100 doors, meetups are a great place to connect with other like-minded individuals, including buying and selling your deals and staying up to date with what's new in your local market. I'm a buy and hold investor focused on single-family, multifamily, and self-storage in York, PA, and can be found at chadbuys.com. This week, I'm at the LANDLORD Investors Mastermind Group in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, hosted by Judah Hoover of Slatehouse Property Management. There were a mix of speakers this evening, including Robert Jacobus and Grant from Inspiring Films and Chris McGready of Pre Season REI. Robert and Grant discussed alternative investments in the film industry, including the process of getting movies from story to made to pre-selling the film to ensure success, plus the tax incentives and benefits to investing in films. Chris McGready was a fireman for 15 years before he got started investing in real estate. Now Chris and his wife, Mel, run Pre Season REI, a training camp for new investors. Chris discusses his ups and downs during his last 5 years of real estate. In addition, Chris discusses evaluating his sales process to close more deals, his marketing strategy, how he used to handle his in-person meetings with sellers, how he handles his sales appointments now, hint, he builds rapport, why he focuses on selling or solving seller problems and finding out the seller's motivation, his 5-step sales process. And now, on to this week's episode. Thank you.
All right, everybody, how are we doing today? Great. Oh, come on, guys. 2020, first meeting of the year. How are we doing today? Wonderful. Outstanding. Ready to go. Nice. This is by far the highlight of my month. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I'm just sticking this in my pocket. And I absolutely love being here each and every month. And it is my great honor and privilege to network with you guys and put these meetings on. And it's always jazzed me up to get around other entrepreneurs who are looking to do something different with their lives, looking to draw a line in the sand, especially at the beginning of a new year, a new decade, saying that we're going to do things differently this year. And it's amazing how much of a change you can create by just doing a few simple things differently, consistently over time. You know, our actions have a way of compounding over time, just like real estate investing. You know, if you have a piece of real estate and it appreciates 3 to 5% every year, you don't notice that in year 1 or year 2 or year 3, but come back 15, 20 years later, that $100,000 house you bought is now all of a sudden worth $300,000, and you didn't do anything but just sit there and hold it. You know, I love real estate. It's a great thing, and I'm really excited to be here. We have a jam-packed meeting here tonight, and so I am going to go through this opening a whole lot quicker than what I normally do. Guys, if this is your first time with us, I can't promise every meeting is going to be as great as what we're going to have here tonight, but I put a lot of time, effort, and energy into putting on the best meetings in Central Pennsylvania. And the reason I do that is because I want to meet you guys and get to know you. You know, a restaurant doesn't want to serve awesome steaks. They want to hand you a bill, you give them the credit card, they run the credit card. That's what a restaurant's there for, right? I mean, let's be honest. But the only way they get to hand you a bill and you hand them a credit card is if they first deliver an awesome steak. So make no mistake about it, my goal, my interest is meeting and working with and hanging out and collaborating with all of you guys. That's what I look to do. And so how I do that is put together awesome content. If you look at what we did in 2019, we just had some amazing speakers. Last month was our Christmas party, never to be called a holiday party, Christmas party. Tonight we've got 2 awesome speakers. Bob Jacobus from Inspiring Films is going to be talking I've recently found out about these guys. They're doing some really interesting stuff, delivering some outstanding and amazing yields in the film industry in a way that we can participate in that and also do a whole lot of social good at the same time. I'm really excited about it, and I said, guys, you don't know this, but I got a room in Harrisburg, and you got to come and talk to that room. That's how excited I am about what it is that they're putting together. We've got Chris McGready, no R in it, and he is going to be talking about the sales process. I'll do a little bit more of an introduction for him later, but there's so many people out there teaching how to do marketing to get your phone ringing, and how to do the numbers on a deal, and how can you do subject to deals, and how to raise private money, and what's the difference between private money and hard money. You know, there's all these different things that people talk about. There's very few people that talk about what do you do when you show up at that motivated seller's house from the time you go ding dong until there's a signature on a paper. What does that process look like? And Chris can talk for 3 days on that. I asked him to talk just for an hour tonight. And if you want more information about Chris, he'd be more than happy to get together with you and talk a whole lot more. But we're going to get a really good primer on how to close more deals and have happier sellers and have less stress in the process. Coming months, we've got Denisha Baker, who is an awesome woman that I work with here in Harrisburg. She keeps a whole lot of my vacancies occupied and filled, and she's got a really awesome program. Ryan Shepard is a local who you're going to hear from tonight, and Craig Fuhrer. I've also got so many people lined up that I don't have dates and times for. If you know of anybody, or if you have a topic that you want to hear from, you've got to email me. You've got to tell me. I've got to know what it is that you want. This is the group's group. That's always how I've said it. This is the group's group. I just facilitate. I just organize. You know, certainly I'm not making any money off this, guys. So if you're not getting what you want, shame on you. Please tell me what it is that you're looking for. Does that make sense? Housekeeping, we're a free club. We're open to all. Networking starts at 6:30. We usually go until about 9. If you have to leave earlier, that's just fine. Bathrooms are down the hall. Please silence your cell phones. Thank you guys very much for registering. Or even if you come on a regular basis and you don't want to fill out this stuff every time, I mean, I'm just looking to find out who was here and make sure I have email addresses and stuff like that. How many people in this room are on my email list? How many of you think that I send too many emails a month? Right. Right. There's always the one guy. So I don't spam a whole lot. I mostly just talk about, oh, Bruce is back there too, of course. So I don't really spam a whole lot. I just mostly talk about, what's going on with the club, other interesting meetings and stuff like that, and other stuff that's happening. Guys, here's a really big one just because of the litigious environment that we live in. I am licensed by the state of Pennsylvania to be a real estate professional salesman. Okay, you might hear some people use the term realtor. I am not a CPA. I am not a financial planner. I am not an attorney. Please don't sue me. Okay? My attorney asked me to put up like this whole big thing on legalese, and I said, I think they get it. Please don't sue me. Okay? Here's who I am that I'm not going to go over. All right, so who we have in the house here tonight? Johnny Throne. Guys, Bruce Barlar, who's in the back of the room, Bruce, raise your hand. If you have residential mortgages, you absolutely need to talk to Bruce. He's, I almost said kick-ass, but this is going to be on a podcast, and so we won't use language like that. Bruce is an absolutely awesome loan officer. He taught me almost everything I know about real estate and almost everything I know about the lending world, and we were partners for about 10 years. Bruce's focus is mostly on the residential side of lending. John Throne focuses on the commercial side of lending. So John is an awesome guy to talk to. He told me tonight, he said, Jude, I love networking with your group. I'm actually working on getting 2 deals done for people in your meeting who were told no by banks before. So he can also do, even if you think you can go to the bank and get like 80%, maybe John can get you 90%. So it's not just like if you're turned down by the bank, call John. You should call John and sit down and have coffee with him. He'll even pay for the coffee and go from there. Chad Eisenhart is here. Thank you, Chad, very much for producing the podcast and doing everything. I greatly appreciate everything that you do. And my good friend Joseph Abraham is right here. Joseph is there's a lot of smart people in this room. Joseph is legit probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met and got to know, okay? He's also one of the humblest guys I've ever met or got to know. I mean, he is absolutely awesome and amazing. Joseph was taken advantage by a couple insurance companies and realized that there needs to be somebody fighting for the actual consumer. And kind of like if you're a star athlete, you know what I mean? You have your agent do some negotiation on your behalf because you're really good at football, they're really good at contracts and what's expected and not expected and things like that. Joseph is your agent when it comes to fighting with insurance companies. And if you ever have an insurance claim, he's a public adjuster and can get you more than what you might otherwise have been able to get. And he's just an honest, decent, just such a genuine guy and real estate investor, and I can't say enough great things about him. Guys, we're putting on a conference. Slatehouse Group is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars putting on a conference. There is going to be about 1,000 people there. Even if we screw up and only get 600 people in the room, it's still going to be the biggest conference in central Pennsylvania. We've got amazing speakers. You've got to go and check out the Real Estate Hackers Conference website. We've got the schedule up. It's going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It'll be like one of the only 3 Sundays in 2020 that I skip church. I try not to get too preachy from the front of the room, but that's how valuable I think this conference is going to be. I begged, borrowed, and stole from Chad to get a different, unique discount code for me because we promote this at a bunch of different meetups. And I was like, Chad, I want to know how many people are buying because of me. So promo code Judah, please, if and when you register. I really appreciate it. We've got 2 tiers of tickets, $250 and $400, depending on how many backstage extra meetings and things like that you want to get to. It's going to be at the Lancaster County Convention Center. It's going to be an absolutely awesome event. We're also going to have at that event a forum of service providers. So it's going to be like a vendor trade show, thank you, is the word I was looking for. So it's going to be a really great trade show. There's going to be a lot of really great stuff. We're encouraging all of those people who are going to be there to have special discounts. Hey, if you want to use my services, it's normally priced this way, but I'm giving discount just for people who are here at this. There's not going to be anything for sale. There's not going to be any books. There's not going to be any coaching. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 of the speakers are also a coach or also a mentor, but it's not like it's going to be a pitch fest at all. There's not going to be people there trying to raise money. There will be people there talking about syndication and other things like that, but that's not the point of it. It's 100% jam-packed, 2.5 days of awesome training, and you just need to be there. And we're pricing it so that we break even, and we're not looking to make any money on it. We're just looking to, I've been doing this I'm 40. I bought my first rental property when I was 22. When I got started, there was all these weekend conferences, and then they went away for about 10 years, and we're really excited to be bringing back awesome, high-content weekend conferences. So Real Estate Hackers is the brand that we founded to come up with and do that, just to keep it separate from Slatehouse. So if you don't like Slatehouse for whatever reason, you can still like that. Guys, I usually go through this a little bit more. I will skip that tonight, but I want to hear from you guys. What are we missing? What opinions do you have? What do you hate? What do you need? Email me. LIMG Resources. AccurateRent.com is amazingly underutilized because I see how many times people use it, and really there should be 100 people a day using that, and there's just not. If you're using only Zillow or only Rent-O-Meter or only your gut, you're missing an absolutely awesome thing. We manage 4,000 units. My grandmother always said self-praise stinks. I don't say that to brag. We manage 4,000 units. There's a lot of data there, okay? I know what West Shore 3 bedrooms with air conditioning rent for. You should check out this site to get for free. Yes, we're going to put you on our email list. Yes, it means we're going to, from time to time invite you to our conference or other things like that, but you're not going to get spammed or, blasted or anything like that. Guys, email me at Judah. I helped 72 people last year. Oh, March to October. I updated this part, but I didn't update this part. So last year I helped 72 people get connected with buyers or sellers or things like that. I think that, a lot of people in this room don't necessarily know each other, and I want to help facilitate that. And I just have a stupid Excel spreadsheet with what somebody's looking for. And so if anybody says, hey, I'm looking to blah, 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 I put them on my Excel spreadsheet and check in with them every once in a while and just looking to help you guys out, okay? Facebook page, YouTube channel, blah, blah, blah. All right, opening act, that's all I got. My good friend Ron Shepard. Ron is a hard money lender. He is a realtor. He is a broker. He's a CPA.
I need this.
And what's that?
I don't need that.
You don't need that? Okay.
I don't think so. You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Got that.
Just clip it.
Yeah. So I want to thank Judah for letting me come out here. Judah and I have known each other for a long time. Like, we were doing these groups like in 2005, 6, and 7 before things even went bad. So like, we've been doing this a long time, and Judah's like the last man standing, okay? I mean, some of the groups like just totally disbanded. One of the groups had a sheriff show up looking for the leader because too many people had lost money. Another guy had to quit because he was a guru in flipping, but had a foreclosure and bankruptcy pending, so he ended on to somebody else. So I want to kind of go up for Judah because he's been around a long time, and I really appreciate his experience. He's been through a lot of different markets. He's worked with a lot of different people, helps with a lot of different deals. So Judah just has a great kind of sense of the market, what's needed for a group like this. I'm really glad that he's still leading this group. Appreciate him letting me come. I'm going to come out in March. I'm going to talk a little bit about syndications, how to evaluate syndications and things. So happy to have everybody here then. But it's January, so I want to talk a little bit about goals. How many of you have your goals written down for the year? Okay, so not everybody. So really encourage you to do that. I've been doing that, I don't even know how long, 15, 20 years. And my wife and I usually get our goals every year. We look back, and we've pretty much, even if we don't keep them in front of us all the time, over the years have hit every goal that we have set for ourselves that we at least still care about. And so every year we do that. So if you don't have the goals for how many flips you're going to do this year, how many rental properties you're going to buy, how much you're going to make, you're not going to get there because you really don't even know what you're shooting for. So you need to set those, get them broken down. And then Judah asked me a while ago, I was going to come last year and then couldn't make it, but just give people, if you're struggling, everybody gets into one of those slumps where you're like, just seems like I don't have any business, I don't have any flips coming, I don't have any deals coming, like, what do I do? And you kind of need some enthusiasm or encouragement. And one of the things I've told, I'm a broker, I'm a realtor too, and a broker. One of the things I've told agents for a long time, whether they work for me or somebody else, and they'll call and they'll say, I don't have any business. How do I get something happening here? And I tell them, find somebody in the community, a business owner, a lawyer, somebody who knows a lot of people, and to see if you can take them to breakfast or lunch. And when you go out with them, you sit there and you should only talk about 5 to 10% of the time, asking questions. And just ask questions, let them talk about themselves. Try to figure out how they got to where they are. And then what you never want to do is ask them for business, I tell them. But you do want to say, this is what I specialize in. I specialize in whether it's residential or commercial properties. And if you ever know anybody who needs help in that, would you mind mentioning my name? So most of these people, if they're successful, they're going to have a lot of connections already. They already have their own broker, they have their own banker. They have somebody that maybe they are going to, if they're going to sell their rental property without putting it on the market, they might already know somebody who they're going to sell it to. But, they got to where they are because they helped other people too. And so they're going to want to help you if you do that. So ask for their help, don't ask for their business, if that makes sense. And they're going to be a lot more open to helping you. They're going to appreciate you more because you didn't take them out to try to sell them something, right there. You're just out there asking for their help. So just a little tip, hopefully, that'll help you guys meet your goals this year. And looking forward to being back in March. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. I have that wonderful. Yeah, Ron is so awesome. I really appreciate him. Ron's one of the guys who I call whenever I'm not sure what to do or whenever I'm having a bad day, and he just always does an amazing job giving me a different perspective on things. Ron's a hard money lender. If you're ever looking for hard money, you need to talk to him. And Ron is going to be back in March, and he is going to be talking about how to evaluate syndications. There's a lot of people out there selling syndications, right? And there's a lot of people saying, hey, I'm looking at this 300-unit apartment complex. Let's put some money together and let's buy this. And of course, the person selling the syndication wants to tell you, well, how great and wonderful it is. Ron and I have both seen people do really well in that industry and do really poorly in that industry. And so it behooves you to understand how to evaluate a syndication. Does that make sense? So Grant and Robert, come on down here, guys. Boy, I've known these guys for the last 3 or 4 months. I am going to do as little of an introduction as I can possible and let these guys talk to you about who they are and what they're doing. But they are titans in the film industry doing how many years have you gone to like the Cannes Film Festival now in a row? Like 30 something. Okay, gotcha. I realized I was just asking him to kind of tell us how old he is. So these are real guys doing real films, not amateur hour at all, and they're looking to do something a little bit different because of some Pennsylvania tax laws and national tax laws that have recently been enacted. And I'm jazzed up about it and tickled pink, and I don't usually get that way when I see alternative investments. And I know that we're here to talk about real estate, but I also know that whenever we talk about alternative investments, it's got to be really awesome. And I've presented some people with some alternative investments from time to time, and they usually do pretty well. Grant, come on up here, my friend, while I get this on Bob.
Bob, I got this one. This is really scary. I've been whispering stuff back and forth up here, and I think everything's recorded. I may not be able to go home tonight. Yeah. I don't know. My name's Grant Bradley. I apologize for my accent. It comes from the fact that I was born in New Zealand, but I grew up in Canada, and I lived in Australia, England, and now Pennsylvania. So it's kind of, and one thing you kind of learn to do is adapt, because you actually want to be understood, and you kind of get sick of having to say things twice. So you start to adapt, and then it kind of wears on. Thank you for the introduction, Judah. We are really honored to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I basically wanted to get up and apologize to kick off, but Judah's kind of covered it for me, because I know most of you are here because you're involved in the property business and real estate and that kind of thing, and we're not going to talk about that at all. So just kind of setting expectations. But we are involved in an exciting industry. It's challenging. It can be world-changing. And we think there's fantastic opportunities that Bob is going to share with you in more detail. So thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity, and I hope you get as inspired as we are.
Awesome. Guys, thank you for having us. It's not so far off a field. What we are is, you saw, a film production entity. But what we're here going to be talking about in detail tonight is how we are raising money, to fund our films. But what's particularly interesting about it is there's been some tax law changes in 2018 that allow for some radical depreciation of passive income. And that's what we're going to be here offering tonight, to show how, filmmaking can be a scary investment. In fact, there's an old famous line I'm stealing from Grant that basically says, if you want to make $1 million in film, you start off with $1 billion investment. So what we are doing right now is we're raising a $100 million fund in small $35,000 units, and that just gives you a sense of what we're looking at. And it has to be done to take advantage of all the taxes with passive income. So there we go. Out of the gate, one of the nice things that's happened is Judah alluded to it. We've been going to the Cannes Film Festival for decades, and we've actually produced some 30-odd different movies. And what we've done is is perfected a model that works fantastic, and it allows us to attract amazing talent. And what's happening right now is that we attached this little known fellow named Jared Harris, who just starred in Chernobyl, if anybody saw that on HBO. He's got several more features coming up, who attached to us before he blew up. And because he loves the script, he's keeping his rate as what it was. And he is going to stay with us and shoot a film locally in the Lancaster County area because he loves the story. That just gives you a sense of what it is. He has been a guy that has been a character actor and a man of amazing depth for years. He starred on Mad Men for a lot of years. He actually starred across Robert Downey Jr. in Sherlock Holmes. And why we hired him was because he can tell stories that are different. What we're looking to do with inspiring films is to be inspiring. We want to celebrate, or we want to start with the premise that those who tell stories rule society. So what stories we tell has an impact on every part of life. And as Plato said, shouldn't we seek to create art that celebrates the good, the noble, and the beautiful? And that's what we want to try to accomplish. And inspiring films exists for that reason. In fact, Grant didn't tell you the story. I'm going to steal his thunder yet again. He woke up one morning years ago and looked at the landscape of his life and had produced wonderful movies like Miami Shark Attack and Abandon and so forth, and said, wow, I started off doing a Billy Graham film. And what do I need to do? So Grant decided to do something inspiring, to create a film company that is intentional about doing good with making good profits. So, wow, that font didn't come across too well. Sorry about that. So what we are doing is I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to take you behind the scenes and explain to you how Hollywood makes money, how the independent film business works. And we've done this by a lifetime of success, by employing a proper business strategy. And we have a worldview that engages the secular culture. So we have a history of secular success in independent film. What you'll note is you may not know every movie title here, but look at the faces. We hire up-and-coming Hollywood talent or people that have already had a lifetime of success in film. Josh Hartnett, you saw Randy Quaid, you saw Jim from Taxi. What we've done is we hire the right kind of talent that draws people in to want to see the movie. And that's the first secret of success in film, is drawing people in that will buy tickets, because we are a business first and foremost. I mentioned earlier, we've done over 30 years of filmmaking. Actually, it's over 50 films shot in 9 different countries. So, the Aristos origins. Our company was founded really by 2 brothers. You met one part of the family tonight with Grant, but the other side is the art of film, which is Dale. He has produced 40 films, directed 8 of them, and authored 4. Grant loves the business side of film, and they figured this out a long time earlier in their careers, where he writes the contracts. He's raised over $250 million and deployed them in films, has 50 film credits, and has developed, produced, and distributed films around the world. So that's kind of the bona fides there that we wanted to give you, that we're for real. But behind the scenes of how the independent film fund, or how independent film is made, is the innovation we want to share tonight. Essentially, we start off with a great piece of IP. That's an intellectual piece of property, right? That's a story, a script, an idea. From that, we then attach a director. That is somebody who has gotten the ball across the finish line successfully in a Hollywood production. Then that director helps us attach an actor that will get rear ends into seats. And that is the first step. That's the 3-legged stool that we create to go to market. And what we do is we fund the first third of the movie, at least 25% of it, through pre-sales. Pre-sales is what we do, the ugly people behind the scenes at Cannes. You see, all the pretty people are out front. They're getting their pictures taken. We're in the back going to Ukraine and saying, hey, I got this movie idea. Belgium, hey, I've got this movie idea. And we try to sell them on the idea before we've even shot a frame of film. And that's how the beginning of funding happens in the film business. It's almost like a mitigation of risk. So say you, similar way is like Home Depot. Say I came up with a new plumbing widget, right? And this widget revolutionizes how we move water. You go to Home Depot and say, here's my new widget, this is what it looks like, how many can I put you down for? That's what we do. Lowe's and all the little independent hardwares, Ace Hardware, and they put up purchase orders. We take those purchase orders to a bank, we borrow against the purchase orders. That's what we're doing, just on a much bigger scale, because what we're doing is going around the world and saying, Ukraine, do you want the rights to this film? Yes, I do. You can almost see them. All right, starring Tom Cruise, action adventure, it's got so-and-so as a director, I can move 70,000 units. I'll give you $50,000 for the rights, and here's 5% down. We take that to the bank, get the loan, and that's where we start up our funding for movies. Then we add in local tax credits. Would you believe that the state of Pennsylvania will give us roughly 30% of our film's budget just to shoot it here as cash money? Nice, we'll take that. So then we get into bank financing. Well, what we do is we try to close the gap, get about 10 or 15% film funding there. And after that, equity investment. So the last money into any film is equity money, people putting in investment money to make a return. So what we've done is we've mitigated the risk here, where 60% of the film is already funded, and we've got proof of concept because people who sell films are willing to put up their cold hard cash to buy the film before we've shot a single frame. Then once we've got our filming and our budgets lined up, we go to town and start filming it, and then we do distribution. Now the international distribution is already taken care of because we've gone around the world at Cannes and at the American Film Market and all the Berlin film festivals and pre-sold it. Now there might be a second bite at the apple, you know, another distributor, maybe a country we didn't sell, will now look at the film and buy it and sell it and distribute it. But the rest of it is domestic, where we find a domestic distributor, someone who will go out and, you know, one of the film companies, Sony or so forth that you know, maybe Netflix, maybe Hulu, that will distribute it and help pay even more money into the kitty. But the reason why this works is because we've done up front, got the money taken care of with at least 60% of the budget. That's why we boast a return on investment, and we have never lost an investor's dollar over the lifetime of our film business.
Say that again?
We have never lost an investor's dollar. Now, we haven't always blown the doors off, you know, and had a big hit, Miami Shark Attack or whatever, but we've had where the people's capital was safe. And it's because not only are we trying to do good art, but we've done it in a way that protects people, and we've done it as a proper business strategy. So, summing up, and this is the only, well, one other detail part we'll talk about. We package the film first, then we take it to market to pre-sell it. That's how we finance it. Then we distribute the film, and the ROI comes in at a much lower threshold because we got some free money in there too, because we got the state of Pennsylvania or the state of, you know, California or whoever to pay us with a tax credit to shoot there. So let's talk real quickly about the funding and how the sources work out. We already talked about the pre-sale. That's the international distribution rights. We've talked about the tax credits. That's the local states that pay us to come shoot there. The bank gap loan, that's basically banks. There's about 9 of them around the world that deal with this particular kind of financing. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is the equity piece. And this is where the funders come in, that we use the final bit to get the movie done. But notice, this money is already lined up before, so we've really been intentional about mitigating the risk in the process. All right. So let me give you a couple real-world examples. Did a movie years ago. You remember Stella Warren, if some of you are old as I am. She was in a movie called Planet of the Apes with Mark Wahlberg, and it was a huge hit for her. We hired her after the fact and got her to star in a movie called Beauty and the Beast. So what did we do? We got a known IP piece. People knew the Beauty and the Beast story. We attached an actress that could do it. And look here, and sorry the numbers are a little bit befuddled here, but we shot in a place, and I always get this wrong, Grant, Ukraine or New Zealand? Australia, sorry. This one we shot in Australia. And they gave us almost a 50% tax credit because they wanted a film business to be born in their locale. Now remember, this is back around 2003. So that means that the equity piece for this one was only $500,000. It wasn't a big chunk of it. So even the risk was even more heavily mitigated for this one. And that's kind of just to show you the model flexes. You know, we always look to really capture as much revenue as we can ahead of time to mitigate risk. The other one I wanted to show you real quickly was The Hive. This was a 13-episode series, animated Bumblebee. We pre-sold it, did the tax credits. Whoa, wait a minute, why is the equity so high on this one? Well, that's because Disney bought the rights to it to distribute it around the world, and China did a deal too. So the equity was already put up by the company that wants to distribute it. So again, risk is mitigated because they already have their distribution arm in place. So that's how we harness Holly A. Wood, experience, connections, and talent. So we've already talked about the pre-sales, and I'm not going to make you go through all this again. But the one thing I do want to land on, love what Grant says. If you cannot pre-sell the movie, perhaps you shouldn't make it. Let that sink in, because that's the mitigation of risk. If we can't line up people to distribute the film ahead of time, we abandon it. That's the bottom line. Because we might love it, and it might be our heart, and we might have the actors and everybody loving it. If we can't sell it, we can't sell it. That's the bottom line. We're in a business as well as an art. So let's look at the business structure as we round this section out. We are akin to a construction company. What happens in a construction company? They start off by acquiring a property, a pretty piece of land. Then they hire an architect to come in there and design what it's going to look like, right? We then secure the funding. We go to the bank and say, here's the land we got, here's the architect's designs, what we need is the funding to build it. Then we get the budget lined up, or the funding lined up. We hire the builder. See right there, that 15% fee, remember that. So we hire the electrician, the plumber, the painter. Then the property goes for sale. All right, if the market's down, the bank, can acquire the property. If we sell it, great, everybody's a winner. And the bottom line is, if there's a housing boom, all right, extra profit. But what we do as a company, Inspiring Films, is we thrive on the 15% construction management fee. So we take an existing business model and applied it to film. And this is how independent film is made. So if a movie doesn't do great, it doesn't affect our bottom line. Now, if it does do great and it's a rainmaker and all of a sudden everybody's talking about your film, fantastic. That's extra profit. But the reality is we are protected because the financing is paid off with the sale of the home. The housing boom above the line profit, but the reality is we survive whether the movie does well or not. And that's what you see here. We find the IP, the intellectual property. We get that screenplay done with a director and an actor attached that are faces that are known. We pre-sell it, get the credits and equity done. When the movie starts filming, we get that 15% fee. That's the bottom line of how we fund our business, and then move on to the next project. So we release the movie. If it's a hit, it's above the line profit. So we're going to go through this. So we have a profitable business structure where we're a 15% movie producer management fee. A high result, a hit movie is above the line profit. Other filmmaking models work sometimes, but you never hear about the 90% of the time they don't work. Ours is the lowest risk model, period. So let me take you to Keystone. I already talked about it's a passive income investment, all right? So, that's wrong. It's a $100 million fund. Sorry about that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a $100 million media fund for films that are funded 50, really closer to 60% or better. And what we're looking to raise capital for is that 35% in that little tiny piece of the pie. There we go, the $100 million fund. Sorry about that. So the 35% is what we're looking for, but what's our dream? Our near-term goal is to fuel inspirational films and build this viable business model, because what we're doing is we're shifting. We're shifting towards doing films that are intentional about being good, doing good, and having solid, redeeming messages. But we want to be an investor haven. We're not going to sacrifice our business plan and the quality of how we do our business in this process. We're going to still use our sound principles that we've developed over the decades. Our long-term goal is to be intentional about building a permanent, inspirational media production house. So you get the gist of what we're trying to get you to participate in. We shot a film already this past year called Blindsided. Those of you as old as me will remember Natasha Henstridge. She starred in the Species series, sci-fi flicks that was a big hit back in the 90s and a little bit into the 2000s. This was an action-adventure thriller. What I liked about this movie was this wasn't a project that we took from start to finish. It was brought to us through Premier Entertainment. But what we got to do was what C.S. Lewis called be the good infection, meaning that when he described the Christian faith, what he said was is that it makes you better than you would have otherwise been. And that's what we're able to do with movies. You know, we've got the background and the skills. We can go into a movie like this and be a little bit more culturally redeeming, to bring redemptive themes into the story and make it better than it would have otherwise been. And that's the goal of what we're trying to accomplish. Never quit, give you a sense of the slates of what we're trying to produce. Doctors, well, what happened was there was a boy, and he and his brother were in a schoolhouse fire, I think it was, and the fire killed the brother, but the younger one survived. His legs were badly burned. The doctors were going to amputate. The family was a faith-filled family that said, we really just want to pray and give this boy a chance to have his legs. It took him 4 years to rehab to learn to walk again. But that young man turned out to be one of the major runners in the Berlin Olympics with Adolf Hitler and Jackie Robinson. They in fact roomed together. And he became named in 1970 the greatest American miler of all time. You know, it's a kind of a chariots of fire on steroids. From Disgrace. This is kind of indicative of the kind of movie we want to tell. If you've heard the song Amazing Grace, everybody knows that song. Well, if you know the story, you think, well, it's the story of a guy that was a slave trader, became a Christian convert, realized he was terrible, and stopped. And no, that's not what happened. In reality, his faith was progressive. He became a believer and then decided to be the best slave trader on the earth there was. And his slaves made it to market. And he decided that he would treat them well and then get them to market safe, whereas most slave ships, 30-40% of them would be lost, right? Then a poetess from America who was a slave, who could not get published in America, was brought to England. She was then, through a coincidence of events, met Milton and essentially persuaded him of her humanity. And that is where he came upon Amazing Grace, that even as someone who understood theology and God and the nature of humanity, he was wrong. And he wrote the Amazing Grace song based on the idea of how wrong I was to even continue being a slave trader. And that's the kind of inspirational story we want to wrap around and tell stories that aren't being told. We ought to do a traditional biblical epic called Elijah. And of course, you saw Brave the Dark, where you got to see a little bit of that. Not only has Jared Harris committed to the project, this is number one on our slate for 2020. We have already lined up the funding. We have already lined up, I should say, the pre-sales. We have lined up the banking portions of it. Right now, you know, there's something that happens when you get a big star that suddenly hits it. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, great, we got a national star. It's, oh no, we have a national star and we need lots more money now. So that's part of the issue that we're facing. It's a double-edged sword, and it's a good place to be. But Jared Harris is going to be attracting attention to this film unlike any other actor that we could possibly cast at this point in history. So Jared was in the #1 series on Earth according to IMDb just this last fourth quarter 2019. So we, as a relationship with him, we also then attached Nicholas Hamilton, who's going to play the part of Nate Busco, the troubled youth in this story. And if you know, he was the star of It and The Dark Tower. So we've been able to line up a stellar cast, and we're right now looking to raise $1 million in equity to finish this off by June of this, or I'm sorry, is it March of 2020? This couple months, right? June, I'm sorry. There you go. So let me round it out what this is for the passive income investor. We mitigate risk. We do quality assurance because we've got a producing team with 30 years of experience, 50 films. Pre-sales are a proven market interest. They make cash deposits and money talks. That's the bottom line. We can pre-sell it. Now, a return of capital. We have no prior loss of investor dollars, period. Our financial model honors the investor first, unlike almost every other financial model in the film business out there. We're trying to be really safe and keep our integrity in check. 60 to 65% funded before your dollars are invested if you're an equity investor. And we're looking to fund about 3 to 5 films a year. So what happens is when you're doing this, you're not just getting one bite at the apple. You know, the money can go into one film if you so choose, but we can also put it across the 3 films that we produce for the year, and that gives you more bites at the apple if a film has a rainmaker event. Maximizing return. We are obviously in the secular market with sacred themes, but we distribute through world markets. You've already seen that we have to go around the world to pre-sell the films. Story, director, and actor, plus loyal fan base. We are also market-driven, and we can add on the Christian worldview. If you saw the movie I Can Only Imagine this past year, blew the studios out of the water, did $80 million worth of business, shocked everybody. Well, it's because they went after a subsect market of people who were sensitive to religious faith. Didn't have to be conservative, didn't have to be liberal. They marketed to folks that had an interest in religious things. It was a huge win for them financially. Real eyeballs, less Geimers. This is my favorite little closing story here. Grant did a story, a movie that was called Bait years ago. Hurricane in Florida, kids in a parking garage, the seawaters rise, they're trapped, and guess what? Sharks come in and just start eating them in the parking lot. And you sit there and you go, oh, okay. Sci-Fi Channel takes it, runs it, 1.3 million people watch it the first night.
2.3.
2.3, I know. Right. Sounds better when I say 1.3, I know. So what happens is they love it, you know. But you look at like, and I Can Only Imagine, $80 million, you know, $10 a ticket average, you know, how many, 8 million people saw it. Well, the reality is then Sci-Fi Channel reran that 12 or 13 times thereafter, and boom, 25 million people saw that movie. That's real success. That's real numbers. That's real impact. And we want to do that with the inspirational films. Return or ROI, your capital is safe, return is likely. The bottom line is our films become profitable at 25% of the budget coming in from the box office, from DVD sales, from Netflix, from all that. So what are we looking for? We have 2 options. You see up here option 1. This is our lowest risk option. This is where you make a cash investment of $35,000 per unit. That means because of Section 168 depreciation that came into play in 2018, you can do an immediate depreciation of $12,950, a tax credit that just adds, excuse me, that is yours to take the day the film is released. So if we shoot it in 2020 and we get it out before the end of the year, you can take that tax depreciation this year, but it also can be for planning for next year and the year after. The second option, this is what we call moderate risk, but it's really not that moderate because it's bank level risk, because banks are backing up all this paper. You know, so we're not asking you to take any more risk than a bank would. So you put a $35,000 cash minimum in. What we can then do, you remember that pie chart with the blue section? We have to take all that. That's bank loans. That's money that has come in through a loan. We can accredit part of that loan on the pre-sales and the tax credits and all that to you as the investor. That gives your next tax credit from depreciation of $37,000. So before the film even is taking returns, you're $2,000 ahead per cash investment because you can write it off. That's the innovation in this part. So I wanted to take you down the road of just a real quick explanation. So we'll do sales as a percentage of budget. So the film does 25% of its budget, right? And this is option 1. This is the most conservative way of doing it. You put $35,000.
You skip, Bob. You skip over this too much. So if it's
Sure.
$1 million film and it only sells $250,000, that's what you mean by if we hear about this film had a whatever budget. It had a $100 million budget. If the box office sales are only $25 million,
boom.
It's profitable.
108%. Yep, of return on investment. So you get your capital back plus 8%. And that's what I'm trying to basically inartfully explaining. Tax relief is 12. That means your cash position is negative 22. Well, it does 25,000. And look, he's right. We're talking about millions of dollars. I made this model just $100,000. No film is made for $100,000. But just to keep it easy, keep the numbers simple, income of $25,000 on a $100,000 budget. That means the investor cash, after we repay the loans, is positive $29.50. That means you got 108% of your initial money back. So let's look up the end here. I'm not going to make you go through every one, but say it's a break-even movie. I know that 100 looks really interesting. Wow, 100%? No, that's break-even money. That means if 100,000 in, 100,000 out. 100 million in, 100 million out. Investor cash, you put 35 in, 12 gets immediately tax relief. Your cash position is 22,000 in the negative, 100,000 of income. That means your earnings before income tax after the loan repayment is $77,000. You know, that's where what we say, we honor the investor dollar. Now let me take you to the numbers where they really become interesting, is just option 2. That's where you don't forget, we attach 35 in, plus we attach $65,000 or a percentage of the actual film financing, the bank loan. So you put in 35, we attach 65 in terms of your loan attachment. So that means your tax relief is 37,000. Your cash position the day the film is released is plus 2,000. It does $25,000 worth of box office business. That means your cash position becomes $27,000, or 177% of your investment at a movie that is an absolute failure. 25% return on investment in terms of the actual budget of the film. Now, if we do a break-even film, then you go see it again, 35 in, 65 credit, 37 tax relief, you're positive 2,000. We do $100,000 worth of business, that's break-even money. Investor cash is 102. 100 plus 2 is 102. You get a 491% return on investment. Numbers are pretty straightforward. We try to keep it as simple as we can. It is the film business. So, one of the things I told Grant a long time ago is we got to have real world examples. You can't just put pie in the sky out there. So what I did was I went back with Grant and looked at what were some films we've done and how would they have worked with this model for passive income investments. Absolute Deception, back when Cuba Gooding Jr. had a higher star profile, the movie's budget was 2.8. That is roughly what we're looking to be our, coincidentally, for the Jared Harris film, Brave the Dark. We did sales through Anchor Bay, sales through Voltage Pictures, and sales through a combined small cap. Now that means this stuff right here. You know, we distributed through IFM, Gem Entertainment, Multi-Territory, Ace Entertainment did all of France, Celio did Italy, and so forth down the list. Well, the movie cost 2.8. We did income of 1.5 million. Yikes. That means we came in with only 56% of the budget recovered, right? Well, let's see how this works with today's model. Income, you put in 35, you get your assigned loan of 65, your tax relief cash position is 37. Net earnings before income tax, that's money comes back, remember the 56%, you get 19.6. That means your total cash position is $56,000 on your initial 35. And you can see how it will grow with whatever level of investment you choose. Let's do number 2. Let's look back at the TV, you know. We cost about $5 million to do this TV show. The sales in the US were 2.9, remember, Disney. We also, Tina did an exclusive deal for 1.5. We had sales and merchandising, the plush toys, all those kinds of fun things. So that means we made 5.5 million. Okay, 111% of budget. Distribution, you see the list is much smaller. Disney Junior, Disney Animation, Children's Independent TV. Sales, 111%, 35 in, 65 credit, 37 is your tax relief. Your earnings are 38. That means your total cash position at the end is $75,000 on a $35,000 investment. And again, margins of scale. So that's it in a nutshell. So thank you guys. If you're interested, Stephanie, if you could deliver, we're just going to give you a one sheet. If you want to contact us and be a part, Grant will be happy to take your call.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank
Bob,
you.
thank you very much. Give him
Awesome.
another round of applause, and can I have that microphone?
You can.
Guys, we all know people from our family, from our community, from our church. Maybe you're not at a position where you can write a check from passive income for $35,000, but you know somebody who might be interested in this. These guys are taking meetings. I have 4 kids. I love movies. I love films. Every Sunday with my kids, we have something that we call, Western Sunday. After church, we come home, we watch a Western movie or some other good, feel-good movie. Why do we watch Westerns? Because they're the only movies with values anymore. You know what I mean? When was the last time that there was any of these movies of value? We wonder why society is full of rot gut. It's because half of what Hollywood is producing is absolute garbage when it comes to the moral messages. I'm not even asking for movies that say Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. I get it that that's not going to sell. Just give me a movie where there's clear defined good guys and clear defined bad guys, and the good guys go through a learning lesson and they overcome obstacles and they become better, right? That's what inspiring films is seeking to bring to the marketplace. That is what inspiring films has done. And if you're not interested yourself, these guys are very interested in talking to other people who you know who might be interested in this. And at those returns, guys, believe me, I've scoped all this out before I brought them in here. Okay, they did the 3-hour presentation on me, and I asked how many questions. This is. I don't shut up. Maybe you've noticed. So I'm just really excited about this, guys. I think that this is the beginning of what could be some cultural movement. I mean, anyway, I'm passionate about it. All right, second speaker is a gentleman by the name of Chris McGready. Chris, come on up here, my friend. Do I not? Yeah, this is still on me. Okay, good. So, again, I don't want to do a long introduction so that you can talk, but Chris is an awesome Facebook follow, an awesome YouTube follow. Even if you get nothing out of this tonight, you have got to, he's a friend of mine on Facebook, and so is Mel, and you need to follow them. They're putting out awesome content on a very regular basis that is actionable information. And as I was seeing this stuff and watching them, I was like, okay, Chris, I want you to come and talk to my group. What I think you are good at that maybe a lot of other people aren't good at or know about or teach on is this sales piece. Would you be willing to do that? And I got to tell you something, guys. If you were to sit down with me and ask me, Judah, what is it that's different about you? What has set you apart? It's because I've sold lawn care, I've sold cigars, I've sold leather jackets, I've sold, there's not a whole lot that I haven't sold. And sales is not, if I could, would you? Put your trust in Judah Hoover this one time and I'll never have to ask for it again. That's not what sales is. And I actually fight with one of my bosses right now all the time because I call myself a salesman. He says, Judah, people have the wrong impression about sales and you shouldn't even use that term. I love the term sales. I'm proud of being a salesman because sales is about solving problems for people and finding out what they want and can you deliver it. And if you can, great. If not, flush it, no big deal, and you walk away as friends. And it's not about cramming stuff down people's throats. So I wanted to bring Chris in so that he can kind of walk us through that process. And believe me, Chris understands this process a whole lot more than what he's even going to be able to get into here tonight. And you're not going to be able to take notes fast enough. You're going to see me over here taking pictures and taking notes as well. I am not sending text messages. I would be typing this out on my computer, but we're using it. I'm over there taking notes on what this guy is saying, and you need to be doing the same. So thank you very much for being here, buddy. Problem is these microphones are so small. I'll get this on you if you put that in your pocket. Give a round of applause for Chris McGready, ladies and gentlemen. So this is forward, this is backwards, this is a
all right, cool.
pointer in the middle.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. And like Judah said, there's a ton of information on this, and it would take, hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. There's a ton of information on this, and if I spent 3 days talking about it, we'd talk about something different for all 3 days. So the 15-second background on me. My name's Chris McGready. I'm here with my wife, Mel, also my boss. I'm originally from the Bronx, New York. And as we all did, we have a life before real estate. Mine was in the fire department for 15 years. I retired 2 years ago to do this full time, and I was a captain for 9 of those 15 years. Primarily, we fix and flip, and what we noticed is, well, let me start here. Let's do a little quiz. The answers are really easy. Who in here is flipping right now? Okay. Wholesaling? And then landlords? And others, I should say. Who's actually meeting with sellers face-to-face right now on a regular basis? All right, so a few. What we noticed is we started into this about 5 years ago. And it's just been the two of us for the better part of the 5 years until maybe the last part of last year. So I've been doing the lead management and the sales part of the business. And what was happening is we were getting contracts from time to time, but I went on so many appointments and only came back with so little, I should say. I wasn't really turning those contracts, and that frustrated me. I'm not happy with that. So there had to be a better way. I went and got myself some education, started implementing it the right way, and then I turned it into my own. So to make a long story short, where we were turning, I don't know, maybe 1 in 10 appointments, we're doing about 1 in 3 now, turns into a contract. So if you could just get one more contract out of some of the information that I'm about to give tonight, I mean, that would be a win. They give you a little extra money to invest in the movie thing. All right, so tonight's presentation, I call Sign More Contracts and have the sellers be happy about signing. And to go along with what Judah was saying, the word salesman, I think the first thing that comes to everybody's mind is the same thing, right? Anybody? Heard it, yep, car salesman. So that's not the impression we want to give. That's not how I learn sales. That's not how I practice sales. It's more of a relationship-based sales process where, I mean, let's be honest, you're talking to another human, so let's be humans about it. So the objective tonight, give some high-level tips to get you more signatures on contracts. And I'll show you the 5-step sales process we currently use and we teach to our team members. And anybody that's interested in it, because I love it. I mean, I really grasp onto the process of sales. I enjoy meeting with people and going out there and solving people's problems. So what did our process look like before? This was about 2.5 years ago. That was it. We would have the initial call come in. Those that are going on appointments right now, I'm guessing you're putting something out into the world, direct mail, Google, something, right? So we primarily do postcards. And when we would get those calls back in, we would take the initial call. That was a mess. I was afraid in the beginning. I always tell the story that I had no problem putting my gear on when the bell rang, going into a house fire. Seller called me, I was terrified. Go on the appointment, run around the house, tell them everything that's wrong with it, poke at the walls, knock some stuff over, and then make my offer at the end. They would say no, and I would never hear from them again. These are the kind of questions I asked before. How old is the roof? When was the kitchen last updated? When was the bathroom last updated? Are you guys okay? Can you see the screen from over? And would you like to close quickly? This was what was missing was the personability. There was no rapport building. There was no human interaction. It was really just, and I think we all probably start at this point. It was just going there, and the only thing on my mind was I have to get the signature on that contract because that's what I'm there for. And I forget about everything else that's surrounding it. The signature on the contract is happening because that person feels confident enough in you after knowing you for probably 35 to 40 minutes that you're going to be able to solve a really big problem for them by buying the house. Motivation. That's what we're there for. We can't solve a problem that you don't know exists. So you're never going to talk someone into selling their house. Can I go over here and you still get me in that? You're never going to talk someone into selling their house. So we already talked about number 2, the bad connotations of the words influence or persuasion within sales. You are influencing and persuading people. They have to make an important decision and are usually afraid to do so. But through a series of questions, I'm not telling them, you have to solve this today. You have to sell this house to me because it's going to solve it. What are you doing? This is all wrong. No. you're going to ask a series of questions, which I'm going to show you in a bit, that's going to bring the motivation to the surface. And from there, once we have the actual problem at the surface, now we can start solving that. And this is the question I pose. Why is it that we market, and I think Judith said this in the beginning, why is it that we market to motivated sellers, but when put in front of them, we don't inquire about the motivation? So this is what our 5-step process looks like, and I'll go through each one in the further slides. Appointment set, it's either going to be yourself taking the calls or that incoming text message or online, maybe an email. You pass it off to an acquisitions person if you have a team, or this is going to be yourself. Arrive at the appointment, the tour of the house, the transition, and then finally the offer and negotiation. All right, appointment setting. We do have a lead manager. This used to be me. I was the lead manager and the acquisitions guy. So your first advance agreement, which I'm going to show you here, when somebody answers the phone where I was, before I would get a call off a postcard, and somebody say, I got a postcard in the mail from you. I say, all right, cool. Well, what would you like, right? You need to take advantage of that awkward silence, and you need to take control of that. And when you start guiding that conversation, it relieves the tension in the call. So you want to be the first one and tell them what you're going to do, and just ask if that's okay. So we want to find out what made them call us today, and had they been thinking of selling prior to the postcard. Some people are going to call you, you're going to know they weren't thinking of selling before the postcard because they have some choice words, and then you're not going to talk to them in the future anyway. And then the goal then, of course, is to make an appointment. So here's a sample of an incoming call. We say, thank you for calling C&M Housing Solutions. This is Felicia, who is the one that takes our calls. How may I help you? And the seller says, I got this postcard in the mail today. Wanted to know why. So this is where we get to take control of the conversation and start guiding that in the right direction. Acknowledge that. That's great. That's awesome. Whatever feels natural to you, because you don't want to sound like you're reading out of a book or sound like a robot, because honestly, in the beginning, I did too. So great. Most people that call us want to know who we are, what we do, and what we could offer for the house. Sounds like you have the same types of questions. You'll always get a pause, and there's a relaxation on the other side, and say yes, if it wasn't that first person I told you about. Say, okay, cool. I just need about 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to ask you a few questions about you. What do you expect to get out of working with us? And if it seems like this makes sense, we can schedule for someone to come see your house, meet with you, and make an offer. If that sounds fair, we'll explain the next steps. If you like the offer, if not, feel free to kick us out. Does that sound okay? And you get a yes or a no, and then you just kind of take the conversation from there. But now everybody's at ease. There's no confusion anymore from that, I got this postcard in the mail, what did you send me this for? So it sets the stage. And I will ask them, what made you call us today? It may just be that the postcard came in the mail and they want to see what you can do for them. In the spring, I'll say that a lot of the times that we get that is because I'm thinking of listing it in 2 days. I got the postcard in the mail. This could be great. All right, so once we've made that appointment, now we're going to go to the house and we're going to meet with the seller. So as soon as we ring that doorbell, we want to do the same thing that we just did on the phone. They're still nervous. Whenever that appointment was made from that initial phone call, could be tomorrow, could be 3 days from now, could be 4 days from now. They've had some time to think about it. They're still going to be nervous. The houses that you walk into 99% of the time don't look like walking into this place, right? So people are going to be embarrassed. They're nervous about what you're going to think about their house, things like that. So we want to set the stage all over again. So we say, Mr. and Mrs. Sellers, thanks so much for letting us come out and see the property. Is there somewhere we can sit for a few minutes and talk? I always start with a conversation. If it's their personal residence, we sit on the couch, kitchen table, whatever. I'll stand if the house is vacant. But I want to start having the conversation with them as to why I'm standing there. What can I help you with today? Because the house is secondary. I don't care about the house unless there's something there that I can solve for you today. So that is immediate. If anybody pays attention to body language, people are on defense when they open the door and they open it like, all right, so what are we going to do? If you don't set that stage, they just want to run you through and say, come on, let's walk. You want to see the house? You can give me an offer in a couple seconds. No, this is what we're going to do. We're going to sit down, talk, see if this even starts to make sense. And then I'd like to see the house. I'll give you an offer at the end. And you set that stage again, and you get an okay out of them. So when you're sitting with them, what are you looking for? You want to know why you're there, and you want to get that from them. And when you ask them the types of questions as to what were you hoping to get out of today, right? The most popular answer to that is an offer. I want an offer for the house. Sure, I'll be prepared to give you an offer, but there's different avenues that you can sell the house. And where if you hear qualified leads, qualified sellers, we kind of go reverse with that. We want to disqualify them. There's many avenues you can sell a house. You can keep it and you can rent it out. You can list it on the market with a realtor. I want to put that on the table. And why aren't they doing this? Why don't you just list it with a realtor? Or why don't you just keep it and rent it out? Or why don't you just keep it and stay? Ask the tough questions. You're going to start to get some of that motivation surface. You'll hear things like too much hassle. I can't deal with it anymore. I need to go here. I want to go here. Maybe a family member's sick out of state and I can't stay here anymore. Maybe it is an estate and siblings or family members are trying to settle that. Yeah, who's heard of peel the onion? I feel that's a cliche term in sales, right? So this is what we're going to start to do. A lot of people will stop right there. Somebody says it's too much of a hassle, or I need to do this, or the house is getting to be too much for me. Most people, and I did in the beginning, most people will say, all right, cool. The house is too much of a hassle. Of course they want to sell to me. Let's go see the rest of the house, and I'll be prepared to give them an offer. It's not good enough anymore. That's not the true problem. The hassle is a subset of the real problem. So when you say it's a hassle, what do you mean by that? And I was afraid to ask those types of questions when I first started out because it felt like you were being intrusive, right? This is my personal business. Don't ask me those types of questions. Well, think about it. We're there prepared to buy probably the biggest asset they have. And they've known us for less than an hour. And they're prepared to at least hear our offer. It's okay that they tell me some of their personal stuff. And I want to know what that is. So you're going to start asking those questions to start peeling that onion. When you say this, what do you mean by that? When you say that, what do you mean by that? And when they tell you that next thing, maybe there's another question in there. If you don't feel like you're at the true motivation, you just keep asking why or, what do you mean by that? And you'll get there. So when the pain does surface, what we want to do now and that next level of the onion is we want to know the impact that actual pain has on them. Because if it's minimal, this might not make sense at the end of this whole presentation. So when you say it's too much of a hassle, and it's too much of a hassle because of this pain point, what is that doing to you financially, mentally, personally? Is it damaging personal relationships? Is it preventing you from doing stuff at work? Whatever that problem is, what is that effect having on you? Because later on, when you give them your offer and they hate it 110% of the time, we're going to probably bring some of that stuff up again. And remember when you told me this, I want to know if this would ease that pain, wouldn't that make it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. Yes?
So when you talk about peeling the onion, do you feel like that is a way for you to develop a rapport with the person because it makes you feel like you actually care about what's going on in their life?
Yes. Well, you do. We don't operate as the relationship sales process I talk about. We don't operate that as a cliche term in itself. We actually do care. Whatever that answer is, I do care. And, I'm not too big to admit that I've teared up in people's living rooms before because some of those answers are horrible. Like it's not something you would imagine you'd hear. But when they have enough trust in you and they feel like you're there for a bigger reason than to just throw a low ball, right, a low ball number at them, then they're going to feel more comfortable with you. So I think we touched into this a little bit. What would that pain impact look like if we were to structure a deal that made sense for you today? We're getting another advanced agreement from them. And we've gone through the pain. We've gone through the impact it has on them. So if we were to structure a deal that made sense that fixed this, this, and this, or allowed you to go here, here, and here, Would you be able to accept that offer today? And I want to know if they're able to accept it or not, because that's going to make a big difference in your offer, or whether you give them your true number or not at the end. If they're not willing to accept it, that's something else we can talk about at the end. So, as it pertains to the house, learn with your eyes, not by asking. We've just built all this rapport and personality between the two of us, so I don't want to go and ruin that by saying, all right, let's go take a tour of the house. And we walk into the kitchen, and I'm like, my God, you cooking this thing? When is the last time this was updated? Or I can't believe you take a shower in this thing. I don't want to talk about it. You know what you're there for. You've run your preliminary numbers. We're not going to go over running numbers tonight, but as that pertains to real estate investing, you have a basic idea of what you want to offer for the house when you get out there. So just verify that for yourself. Inside your head, if your number's the same or it goes up and it goes down, keep that to yourself. Let them walk around. At this point, most of the time, there's enough trust there that they just keep that conversation going. So I talk a very minimal amount of time on my appointments. If I said 5%, that's probably accurate, because once they feel trust in you, they want to tell you their whole backstory. And especially if they feel like you're going to solve this at the end of the day, you're going to get everything. Stay in that rapport, leave the negativity out, and, well, that's what I meant by that. This is the one time I leave the elephant in the room. I don't want to point that stuff out. Funny story, when I started, it was a house in Pottstown. I went around, and the way I learned this before I started using this sales process was to go in and point out everything wrong with the house, because I had to prep them for my offer at the end. So I would go around with a clipboard and a pen, and I'd poke at things, and I went down this guy's hallway, and he's telling me in the background that this is the house he grew up in, and he really doesn't want to move, but he has to move to Boston, and all of his childhood memories are here, and all that. And I saw a crack in the wall. It was plaster. I was like, oh, what's this? And the whole wall came down. I mean, it was down to that like horsehair you can see behind the wall. So don't do that. All right, so we take the tour. The tour is very short. However big the house is, you run around the house, you take your pictures, and at this point, at the end of the tour, that's just used to further the rapport and the relationship between you and the seller. At this point now, you're going to get ready to make your offer. You know where you are in your head, where your numbers are, and you want to make sure that they're still on board with this. They told you before the tour they'd be able to accept that offer. But now that we've walked through the house, they know what we saw. We know what we saw. That can change things. Just like I said in the beginning, they might have been embarrassed about what you saw. So this can be the one spot where it doesn't matter how much rapport you've built up, there could still be that little hesitation because of whatever reason. There's a multitude of reasons that could be. So in the transition, I'm going to thank them. When we spoke on the phone, or in this case, my example that I used, before we took the tour, you said you'd be able to, you'd be in a position to accept an offer today should it make sense for both of us, right? More importantly, it has to make sense for you. Is that still the case? And if they say yes, and say, okay, well, where would you like to go sit and talk? It's usually back in the same spot you started. So I threw the secret in here. If you get proficient in the first 4 stages of this process, this is the easiest part. The offer and negotiation. I'm going to take you through part of our process here, and then I'm going to give you a few examples in here. I threw in an extra slide about some of the ways that we present the start of our offer. So price anchoring, I put this on the offer slide, but this can really happen at any point during the phone call or the initial talk or the tour, really, if it made sense to bring it up at that point. It's not going to be, well, I'll show you some examples. This is one of the ones we use. My initial numbers are putting me at 50,000, but there's no way you could ever accept that. It's not my offer. I didn't give him an offer. I just kind of put that out there casually, and I'm looking for a reaction more than anything else. The person that feels like you're lowballing them is going to get really angry, and that's okay. It's not my offer. I even told you wouldn't accept it, so we're both on the same page. Sometimes the shoulders go down, the head goes down, they stare. If you're sitting down, They start getting fidgety. I know I'm close. I'm not at their number, but I'm close. It's kind of just a feeler, right? You want to try and get the number first as much as you can. I know that's not always possible when you ask them if they have a sales price in mind for the house. Sometimes, more often than not, I'd say they give me the price, but sometimes they say, well, I'm not falling into that trap. You're going to give me your price first, right? Because the first price loses sometimes. So you can ask this multiple ways. If I get that answer, I say that's fair enough. I might leave it for a few minutes, and when I come back to this line in particular, I'll pause for a second. If I go too fast through these slides, I'm going to make sure that Judah has this presentation and he can upload it to the group. You're more than welcome to download it. So you can ask this multiple ways, right? So if I got that, when I come back to that, I want to say there must be a number. You know, we're sitting at the settlement table. I'm going to put us there mentally, right? Now I want them to picture that. We're sitting at the settlement table. We're signing at the title company. When you walk away from that table, what would you like to walk away with? I always get an answer to that question. I'd like to walk away with 50 grand. Okay. Is there a mortgage that needs to be paid off? Should we buy the property? Is there a mortgage that we'd have to pay off? Because we'd have to give that information to the title company. Yeah, I think it's like 60,000. So we know their number, right? I should have changed that number because I use this in a different presentation. So this is another way we can ask it. What would you say if I offered you whatever that number looks like? And you're looking for that body language I was saying with the drop shoulders or the thrown object across the table, depending on how low you just offered. So this is one of the answers you get back sometimes. I offer that 40,000 and that I'll run with that example. So I offer 40 and they say absolutely not. The least they'd be able to accept is 60,000. We're going to say 60,000 is too high for us. So put that out there. It's okay to tell them that this doesn't work for you because most of the time the answer you get from them is it's not going to work for them. So there's nothing wrong with working with them a little bit. This is a bit of a dance. So the least you would take is 60 and say, I'm sorry, this absolutely wasn't meant to be a waste of either of our times, but I think 60,000 might be a little too high for us to be able to make money on, and that is we run a business. So if we're not going to be able to make money on it, then unfortunately this may not work. I wanted to preface this with a question, but I gave my answer away. You don't want to split the difference. In that situation, most of the time, if you're able to come up the reasonable thing that you think to do is to say, well, I'm at 40, they're at 60. How about 50,000? You don't want to do this. Maybe you can do 50,000, but you don't want to do it yet because all you're doing at this point is splitting the difference. You're bidding yourself up. You don't have another agreement, which is what we get. If I can go backwards, this is what I get right here. At least I would take a 60 and say, all right, if I know my number is, let's say, 49, right, and say, give them the line I just said. I don't know if I can, I know I can't make money on 60,000, but I do have a financial partner or whatever makes sense that you can say, I have a partner that I work with and, let's put our pencils on the paper, see if there's anything that makes sense for us to come up. If we were able to come up to 49,000, is that something you'd be able to say yes to today? If it's anything but a yes, you're not going to give them your final number. You're going to create a follow-up appointment with them, which I'll get to in a second, and you're going to go on your merry way, thank them for the tour, and that'll make more sense in a second. But if it is a yes, and they say, well, 49 seems like maybe something we'd be able to accept. Now, you go outside and call somebody. I would call Mel, call your husband and wife, call the pizza delivery for the night, because you're just buying a couple of minutes to go back in and sign that contract. Because you have your final advance agreement, which was the number. I don't know if I can do it, but if you can do it, I'm going to go check and see if I can. Does that make sense? All right, and there's always this. I added this one in. If a deal's not closable, because that is possible, there's a ton of money in follow-up. Anybody that does follow-up can attest to that. So, who's closing 100% of their appointments in here? I don't have to look. Nobody is. Nobody closes 100%. So the ones that you're not closing, does that mean they're not deals? Absolutely not. They might be in the future. I think I heard a statistic on some podcast the other day that only 15% of your buyers, depending on what industry you're in, actually buy within the first 30 days. 85% of them are within the first 6 months. So follow-up could be good. You don't want to leave saying, all right, well, this didn't work out for us today. Is it okay if I call you back in a week or two and check in and kind of see how things are going? You don't want to leave that. That's kind of open-ended. And we don't like to do that because you very rarely get that answer on the other line when you call back. As you're standing with them face-to-face, I want to kind of get that agreement now. Great meeting with you today. I'm going to be in the neighborhood next Thursday, next Tuesday, between 2 and 4. Is it cool if I stop by again and talk about buying this property? If you get a yes and they let you back in the door, there's a very high chance that you're gonna, if not get the contract that day, very shortly after that. Why are they letting you back in? So that is the end of my presentation. That's our information if you need to reach out. Any questions? I'm happy to field any questions.
Chris, how many deals did you close last year?
Last year was 24, and that was about 78 appointments.
That's ridiculous.
It is.
That's a 30% close rate?
We're 1 and 3 right now.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was after training?
Salesman to salesman?
After.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, after training. It was about 1 in 10 before that.
Is that Sandler?
It's a version of it, yeah, it is. Yep. Which isn't that where your background? It's got to be Sandler, right? It's the same.
Yeah,
It's almost the same process.
Absolutely. Sandler, everyone derives from Sandler.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, guys,
Is
I
that-
can tell you, the thing that I find holds so many people up, and the reason why so many people get out of this business, is they go on an appointment with a motivated seller, they get a no, or they get laughed out of the door, or they get the door slammed in their face, and they're like, oh, wow, this sucks. But you know what? They told me that, I'm going to hear some no's. And they do it a second time, and they do it a third time, and after the third time, they say, I'm just not cut out for real estate, and they stop. I have 4 children. All of them are bipedal. They walk around on their hind legs. When they started to walk, occasionally they fell. Not one time did I say, you know what, Uriah, you're just not cut out to be a walker. I'll just carry you around the rest of your life. It's all right. No, when people talk about failure leading to success, it's not like I started this business and it failed, and I started that business and it's failed. It's a bunch of little failures. If you're as great as Chris, after practice, you're still going to fail twice for every one time you're successful. And you can make a lot of money in this business if you're successful 1 out of every 10 times. And I'll tell you this, the first 10 times don't count. Do whatever it takes to get your phone ringing with motivated sellers, get people calling you, go on 10 sales appointments. Just get it out of the way. If you talk to an author, do you know what they tell you the first thing you need to do is? Write a vomit draft. Write the worst possible draft of this story you can possibly imagine. Just go screw up in sellers' houses as many times as possible. You might mess up and land a deal or two. You know what I mean? That's always a possibility too. But then start to ask yourself, what did I say, what didn't I say? What questions did I ask, what questions didn't I ask? Start in all facets of your life asking people questions. I do it all the time. I walk around my office every morning. How was your weekend? What'd you do? That's interesting. Well, tell me a little bit more about that. Oh, well, why do you say that? I didn't know you did that. How long have you been doing that? But did your boyfriend or significant other do that with you? Practice asking. Just ask as many questions as you can. Next time, and here's the other thing. Chris closes similar. I do just a little bit more advanced, and I just want to touch on this really quickly. Because I ask 3 questions whenever I close. If I was going to go up here and book a hotel room for the night, how much are you booking hotel rooms for the night? A lot of people don't know that hotels are very very negotiable. What $100 a night? Let's say Chris is the bellhop up here. Is that the best you can do? Watch 10% disappear from the price of whatever it is you're looking to buy. Hey, Comcast guy, what does it cost for a full service? $900, or $90 a month. Is that the best you can do? Well, we're running a special right now, and you probably got it in the mail, and I'll just use the promo code, blah blah blah. So whenever somebody says a price, the next question out of your mouth is that the best you can do? I didn't even tell them what price I was willing to offer yet, right? Is that the best you can do? So you're telling me, let's say it's $100. Chris, was that the best you can do? Nah, you know what? Tell you what, we can do it for 90. So you're telling me if I don't pay you $90 for the room here tonight, that I got to get back in my car and drive around and find Howard Johnson? Is that what I got to do, or Red Roof Inn, or whoever's still in business these days? You know what I mean? So you're telling me. Now, Chris knows this. I was so impressed when you knew this. Whenever you ask a question with "so," it elicits negative responses. Whenever you ask a question with "so," it elicits negative responses. So if I say "so," I don't want that to be the answer, right? I want to go lower. So you're telling me if I don't whip out my credit card right now and give it to you for $90 a night, and take the room for $90 a night, we can't do business. I got to go find someplace else. Well, maybe we could just so just tell me. Back up to the first question. So in real estate, what that looks like is this. If I were to pay off, this is why I ask. Chris asks his questions different. It's all the same thing though, and you're going to ask your questions slightly different, and that's okay. I say if I could pay all cash and settle quickly, what's the least you could afford and still be happy? I don't say it like this or anything like that. I say it very calmly, very matter-of-factly, just like Chris did. Okay, I just have a question for you, Beth. If I could pay all cash and settle quickly, what's the least you could accept and you still be happy? I didn't say close in 10 days. Maybe they think that's too quick or too slow. But I'm going to close quickly, relatively quickly. Maybe quickly for me is 30 days. Maybe they need to be educated that the average realtor's putting contracts, together for 45 or 60 days. I don't know. I'm not tied down. Maybe she asked me what quickly is. Well, what does quickly mean to you? Well, I need to sell it in like 2 months. This can't take 6 months. We can do, if it'll make you happy, we can do a 60-day contract. I was thinking I was going to have to get this thing under contract for 20 days and, really, really rush to find a wholesale buyer for it quickly. I can't have this thing take 6 months. We got to do this like in a month or two. If it'll make you happy, we can do 60 days. Would that make you happy? Yeah, that would make me happy. Great. So not only is she happy, not only did I confirm that it would make her happy, I agreed to it, and then I confirmed she's happy with it. That's what Chris was talking about with like price anchoring and pre-selling and confirming things. You do that all throughout the entire sales process. So Beth, if I could offer all cash and settle quickly, what's the least you could accept and you still be happy? She tells me $100,000. I say, is that the best you can do? All of a sudden she tells me $80,000. I say, Beth, so you're telling me if we don't write up a contract for $80,000 today, we can't do business, and I should just come back later and check in on you? If she says yes, that's great. And I know I'm either signing a contract at 80, or I'm going to, well, great, then let's just book an appointment. You know what I mean? So if her number is below my number, then great, we do business. If it's still above my number, great, let's book a follow-up time. And Chris, what Chris said is exactly right, by the way. Whether you're in the neighborhood or not, you're in the neighborhood next Tuesday, sometime between 2 and 4, right? You're in the neighborhood sometime next Tuesday between 2 and 4. Hey, I'm going to be in the neighborhood sometime between next Tuesday, because if they say yes, I'm going to be home, that means they're willing. If they're, well, I don't know, maybe I'll be home, maybe I won't, whatever. Like if they backpedal at all, okay, maybe I'll swing by and see for here, maybe not, whatever. But if they say, yeah, I'll be home, that right there means more than likely they're going to let you in. And more than likely they want to continue talking to you. And more than likely they're just looking to buy time and check with their uncle, or call their sister-in-law who's a realtor and see what she could sell it for, and blah blah blah, right? So
more often than not, that is the case. There's somebody else involved in this transaction, not necessarily on the deed, but we do ask on the phone and the appointment in in multiple ways. Is there somebody that would be upset with you if you sold this house to us today, right? It doesn't have to be a person on the deed. It could be a family member. But more often than not, if you don't come to an agreement at the house and they're going to let you back again, that's what they're doing. They're checking with somebody.
They just wanted to check with somebody. If I was going to sell a Beth, true story, Beth Yoder, awesome realtor, right? If I was looking to sell something in Harrisburg, and I was a motivated seller because I had a property that was a 3-unit that I was trying to sell, whatever, blah, 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 and somebody was making me an offer, Beth's not my business partner. We've done very few deals together. She's not my significant other or a family member or anything like that. But if somebody made me an offer, I would find an excuse to delay making a decision and call Beth and say, hey, Beth, somebody's making me an offer on my 3-unit. It's blah, 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 on such and such a block, and this is the condition. Am I an idiot if I take this deal or not? You know what I mean? It's not just, sometimes you have a husband and a wife there, but then you make the offer, and they still feel like, I just got to check with 1 or 2 people about this to make sure I'm not paying the idiot tax. That's fine. Let them check. If you've done everything else right, somebody else, they might even have appointments booked with other people who are going to come in with their pen saying, oh my goodness, look at that ceiling tile there. How long has that been? So you got a roof leak here too, and being obnoxious. And what they're going to remember is how much they liked Chris and how Chris made them feel. How much they liked you and how much you made them feel. So that's what I do. If I could pay all cash and settle quickly, what's the least you could accept and still be happy? Is that the best you can do? So you're telling me we don't blah, 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 no blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, so let me just ask you again, Beth. If I could pay, so I go through each of those 3 questions until I get a 80, 80, 80. And if 80 is above my number, we politely part ways.
Can I piggyback on that point
Nicely.
for a second?
That way they let you back in the house next Tuesday between 2 to 4. When you show up next Tuesday between 2 to 4, you don't want the husband saying to the wife, we could barely get that guy out of the house last time. What more would we let him out this time?
I want to piggyback on one of your points to that. I don't know how competitive it is in this area. We do have some areas in our local that are pretty competitive. And before I implemented this process and became comfortable with it and made it my own, we were going into houses where there were 5 or 6 other investors going into. And some of the answers I was getting on my appointments was that they weren't ready for whatever reason. And then 3 weeks later, you see it on somebody's wholesale list, or you see a rehabber say, this is our next project. And I was in that house. So if you're having the right conversation and you're trusting the process, you're making it your own, at the end of that appointment, there's only one option. 2 options. Either your offer or solution to their problem makes complete sense, or they're going to keep the house. It's the only option. We have appointments now where other investors are scheduled tomorrow, 2 days from now, that they cancel all of them because they know we've created the solution. That's really ultimately what they were looking for in the first place. Yes?
How often is it actually money?
Out of 24 we bought last year, one of them honestly was about money. The other 23 had nothing to do with the price.
So that's why it's important.
Absolutely.
Peel the onion.
Nothing to do with it. In fact, when I posed my initial question of price anchoring twice now, they've said, wow, that was way more than we expected you to offer. That doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, they know. They know what they got. They know that it's that they're not going to be able to accept a full price offer. The other thing is, guys, 1 out of every 3 Chris is closing. That's amazing. But I was young and dumb for a long time. Now I'm just old and dumb. And I would talk to people who were facing foreclosure or facing sheriff sale or facing tax sale, or the house was falling apart around them, and I was trying to up people's motivation level to say, God, like Mel, if the sheriff sale is happening in 5 weeks, we've got to get this started now so that I can get you a payoff in time, and we've got to this is the best, and you might be able to shop around, but it's just till you get other offers in and everything like that, you could lose this house and then just lose everything, and then it really junks up your credit. Trying to motivate the unmotivated. I don't know why Mel's not motivated. I wish she was motivated, but she's not. That's Mel's problem, not mine. Right?
She's the reason I convert as high as I do, because she helped me perfect it. Sometimes not even knowing it, when I was studying sales, I would just use these conversation pieces on her in the house.
Yeah.
And
I do it with my kids. So just last night, here's a deadly one that I like. Would it be all right if you're looking to get a yes out of somebody, would it be all right if? So I have 4 kids. I do very few chores around the house anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't fight very much to get chores done around the house. But if you ask the right questions, it's amazing what happens. I told my son Reagan to go down and flip the wash. That means take the stuff from the washer and put it in the dryer and get the stuff out of the dryer. He left the stuff in the dryer downstairs in a laundry basket in front of the dryer. And he get mad, and he get upset, and he'd yell. He said, Reagan, I just have a question for you. I like that too, by the way. I just have a question for you. Would it be all right if the next time you flip the wash, you just carry the dry laundry upstairs? Guess what he does now? This was today when I asked him to flip the wash. Carry the laundry upstairs. Hey, would it be all right if? Hey, with your permission, I'd like to just go and sit down at the living room table and talk with you for a little bit. Would that be all right? Hey, with your permission, I'm just going to step outside and make a quick phone call to my business partner and see if we can do that price at $49. Oh, I get to give permission. Give people the opportunity to give permission, and they feel so much better about doing business with you. You've set it up that they want to give permission, but they feel like psychologically not giving permission was an option. So anyway, listen. Give another round of applause for Chris. I love so much what he talked about here tonight. Because this is stuff I don't teach by choice here at these meetings, but if I did teach, it would be all about probing and layering, asking questions, diving deeper, the sales process, and everything like that. It has always been my deadly weapon in the real estate business. Guys, here's a little bit more. Don't forget about these resources that we have. Don't forget to tell me what I'm missing, what you hate, what you're loving at judah@slatehousegroup.com. Guys, I also want you to, for those of you that have notes, I'm like 80% sure on this. I'm not 100% sure. I'm hesitant to roll it out yet, but February 29th, me and like 3 or 4 wholesalers are going to do like a half a day wholesaling thing. Probably just charge like $10 at the door to cover some lunch and other stuff like that at our Lancaster office. We've got room for like 100 people there in a conference room, a big, auditorium kind of like this. Saturday, February 29th. Keep an eye out for that. Me, Leonard Green, Chad Nigel, Luke and Adam Swamley, some other people are looking to put together a half a day wholesaling conference. I think that there's a lot of people who teach wholesaling wrong, do wholesaling wrong, don't do wholesaling in accordance to how it needs to be done in Pennsylvania. Again, I'll probably charge $10 at the door, and if 2 or 3 of you slip in without paying $10, I probably won't be that upset about it. I'm just looking to, I'm trying to give you $500 worth of content for about $10. Guys, if there's ever anything I can do for you, please let me know. My goal is to put together the best meetup in central Pennsylvania. Here's the hardest thing for me to do. I can negotiate $1 million deals. This is the hardest thing that I'm about to do for me to do. We only grow if you tell people. I have a hard enough time bragging on myself. I have a very hard time asking other people to brag on me. Please get on social media and tell people what an awesome meeting Judah Hoover runs in Harrisburg. Please connect me with people who should be on my email list, who should be here. Please tell other people about this meetup so that we can continue to grow and continue to help one another. Does that make sense?
Please give another round of applause for Bob and Grant. And definitely a round of applause for Chris and Mel. This is why I'm here. Let's begin networking, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you and good night.
Tune in next time to the Central Pennsylvania Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast, keeping you up to date with what is happening in the York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania real estate markets.